Tyler. I mean, I wore a tie and everything, man. Hi, guys. ABC Newcomers. Got to tell you, I was really excited about coming here because I was hoping there'd be some newcomers. And Kevin and Stacy, don't you run away. You heard the topic. Stick around. Uh, I'll speak for myself. I'm just as mental as you are. You have to believe me on that. You're not like meeting somebody here who's so advanced that you need something. Please stick around. This is all about you. This is all about us. I heard 22 days, 44 days, 28 days. What we're talking about here today hits you right where you are. Day one, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. It hits you. What we're talking about today hits you right where you are. And I'm really, really honored to be here. My name is Marty. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a member of the Prince George Group in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And I gave my buddy Bry the information to come on the meeting with me. Then he heard I was speaking and he split. This only happens a lot. But you know what? I have a lot of friends here, and I can't say hi to you all at once. But some of you I was with yesterday afternoon, we were talking about some pretty beautiful stuff yesterday afternoon too, and we were talking about the flimsy reed turning out to be the powerful hand of God. And again, that's not to spook anybody. That's to recognize that you might be here for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and you might be grasping on to a flimsy reed. But it's our obligation here to talk of God. And, we're going to talk of God as one of the admonitions that you're given early on in recovery. Not because when I got sober, there was all this fear that if you talked about God at a meeting, it would drive the newcomer away. And the idea is that this is not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about a spiritual life. So I'm gonna sort of address some of the, because it's workshop oriented. I'm not going to drive necessarily from my story, but I certainly am always going to be speaking from my own experience. And if there is time, if it was a live meeting, nobody would be muted, and I'd ask you to all speak selfishly and recklessly like AAs do, and you just yell out shit. And but what we'll do here is I'm going to wrestle through some of these ideas and these concepts, and then hopefully get to a place where somebody's interested enough to ask a couple of questions that will really drive the meeting. And you guys do such a good job. Thanks for having me. You guys do such a good job in the parameters and setting it all up. You've become kind of Zoom experts. I think I was maybe just getting okay at it, and then meetings opened up again, and I don't spend a lot of time on Zoom anymore, but always honored when I'm asked, and to spend time with people overseas and across the globe and the States. I mean, it's just, I'm so happy about that. Now, if I was in a live room right now, I'd say, so any questions? That's what I would say. Any questions? And that would drive the context. But let's just go with what I'm asked to talk about. The spiritual life is not a theory. Do you guys know where that is found in your literature? If you have big books in front of you, I mean, you can refer to it if you like. You can highlight stuff. You can do whatever you want. But are you aware of where that term comes from, or that sort of phrase is positioned? If you are aware of where it's positioned, you'll understand why it's where it is. If you're not, I'll point it out for you. So you go to page 83, and you've just been discussing at great length the proposition of taking this information that you've got through steps 4 through 9 and going out and making amends. And that's what's happening right now, is that you are now in a position. So in the recovery process, you've surrendered, you've asked for help, you've come to Alcoholics Anonymous, you've got this sort of understanding that you're alcoholic because you can't stop when you start, you can't stop starting, and you have this allergy that's going to condemn you to continue to drink, and this obsession that will always return you to the drinking. Your first step experience has to be a profound and powerful experience. We try to give you that experience to the best of our ability, but you have to have that alone. The rest of it becomes largely theoretical. And you're asked to do some things, and there's some practicality around what you do, but there is theory behind everything. And in the second step, the proposition is, do you now believe, or you're willing to believe that there's something? And you don't have to know what it is. It's just a question. It's just we're asking you this about the second step. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You see the terminology? Came to believe. But we ask the question. You either say yes, and then it says that I have to emphatically assure you you're on your way. That's my job. Emphatically assure you, not chill, not relax, not maudlin and down and depressed because you got to do this shit. It's like, I'm pretty excited about this stuff. So I come at you with some pretty enthusiastic energy. You know what I mean? Okay, man, not everybody says yes to that. Do you now believe or are you willing to believe? Oh, I believe. Okay, let's go. And if the person says they don't believe, are you even willing to believe? And if they say, no, I'm not willing to believe, I got a recommendation for you. It's not popular in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's that you need to go drinking. You need to go try some more drinking. What we have in AA is coming from this place. Are you even willing to believe in something? If your mind is closed to spiritual concepts, if your mind is closed to those things, there's nothing that anything's going to happen in Alcoholics Anonymous is going to convince you that is something that you're going to require, you're going to need. We won't be able to convince you of that. But that experience in step 2 is going to drive everything else. All it takes is willingness. It'll just take some willingness. And in step 3, what we're asking you to do is take a position. We're going to ask you to say a prayer to echo the sentiment of that position, but we're going to ask you to take a position that this God is the Father, you are the child. He is the principal, you are the agent. He is the director, you are the actor. You see what I mean? It's a subjective position. And you're going to take that position. And it says, when we sincerely take this position, all sorts of remarkable things begin to happen. Now, I've had you as a guy taking you through the steps in my care for about an hour. 1 hour. And we're talking about a third step. Now, people people suggest, and that people have been around for a long time, that people like me rush people through the steps. I don't. I don't have the need for you to have a theoretical understanding of the steps. I believe that if you're dying of alcoholism, that takes no prisoners. I believe that you need probably to do this now. And the concept of now is something I'm going to land on in a little while and stay with for the whole time we're here. Because it's now. And there's no other place for you to be. No other place, Stacy. No other place for you to be than here, right now. I'll come back to that in a second. So this thing in step 1, 2, 3 gets me prepared to look at the things that are blocking me from having an experience spiritually, from having some sort of connection with something. I don't need to know what it is. I don't have to know what it is. I just have to follow the directions to this point. And I'm not coming at you with any theory. I'm not coming at you with theoretical stuff. I'm not coming at you I might share with you the understanding of how I came to believe in a power, but I'm not going to tell you that is the power. That will never happen. I'm going to tell you that you have to have that power. That will never happen. We're going to try to have you had an experience where you experience your own power. So when I talk about this, you got to understand, insert here, I guess, spiritual living, spiritual concepts, spiritual ideas are only that in front of the spiritual experience. All of these things that we talk about in AA, some of us got bigger mouths than others, but all of us that we talk about in AA around spirituality are only concepts until we do stuff. Then they become the experience. It was Ralph a couple months ago. Ralph and I were talking, and he says, Marty, he says, your experience is not the experience. And he caught me. And it's about this stuff. So when you're looking at my little picture on the screen here, recognize that what I'm about to talk about isn't the experience. You need to know this as much as I do. The experience is available to you, by you, for you, and it'll be about you. It has nothing to do with me. So anyway, what happens when you get this inventory and you sit down, you share with someone, you start pulling this stuff out of the dark. You start pulling these blocks out. You start pulling this rubbish out. You start pulling this stuff out that gets you closer and closer and closer to this power that's going to save your life, this power that's going to be effective and efficient enough. If you read the spiritual experience in the back, it's a workshop. Let's go to the back. Let's go to the spiritual experience on page 567 in my book. And just look at the top paragraph, just the top paragraph. It says the terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book. So I don't understand why we're ever really afraid to come to new people or people wanting this way of life. I don't know why we're afraid to come at this openly and honestly. But it says they're used many times in the book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. So what is the spiritual experience in the spiritual awakening? It's a personality change. And so again, you new folks, you folks who are just coming here and you're 22 and you're 44 days and stuff like that, self is probably already rebuilding. The ego is probably already rebuilding. It's probably already creating new stories about your recovery life. And the idea is it doesn't want you here. That storyteller, the ego, does not want you here. It does not want you to rely on spiritual ideas or concepts. So it's going to sabotage that as much as possible and say, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. It's going to say that stuff. And over time and time again, experience with people in Alcoholics Anonymous will tell you that's just a fallacy. It's a story. We've all heard it. It's all echoed in our own heads, and it's driven us mad at times. It's driven us to places that we didn't even know existed. Going back out there and stuff like that is like, it's a terrible thing. But I don't want anybody to be deterred by the terminology, because the terminology is not frightening in any way, because you will never be asked to define that part of your life. When we come here, some of us, and we get the opportunity to speak and we get this sort of forum. One of the things that people want to talk about now these days, it seems a lot, is to tell us how you established your relationship with this power. How did this happen? From the time when you had concepts and ideas when you were a kid, how did you get to this place where you have this trust and reliance in this power that is unshakable? Our literature tells us an unshakable foundation for life. No later vicissitude can shake it, which simply means no later life drama can shake the foundation of my spiritual faith. No, nothing can shake that. So how does one get from there to here? Well, I'm talking to you about the process of the steps. And I hope I'm being very clear in their simplicity, in their necessity, and in the power that's available. We're getting to the place where we're talking about this concept or idea that I've been asked to share about. In steps 6 and 7, I've got all these defects of character and shortcomings, and some of them have been fixed and they're lying there for many, many years. I become aware of them in the last column in step 4. I share with somebody else, and now 2 people are aware of them, and maybe even I get some more insights about how those defects of character and stuff have impacted me. But in step 6 and 7, I'm to go to this God that I don't really know or understand and say, man, I don't know if you're there, what you can do about this shit, but you need to take this. Please take this stuff from me. It's not up to me to be more honest. It's not up to me to be more faithful. If I could have done that shit and I didn't, then I'm just a dick. You know what I mean? There's no help for you in the A&As. You know what I mean? I need to go to Dicks Anonymous, because step 6 and 7 is about allowing this power to take these things from you. And I have this list of people that I've harmed. I have this long list of amends that I need to make. And I've done this in step 8. And there's a willingness in that to be one with my brother. I've heard a lot of people, and now I've got this sort of communion in my mind and my heart with my nation, with my people, with I have to, this idea that I can hold on to grudges and hatred and stuff like that is almost sort of dissipating. It's dissipating. If I say these things out loud and there's an accountability around me at all, I'll be quickly warned that that's the stuff that can drive me to drink. That's the stuff that can eat my lunch. But in step 9, this is what we're talking about. In step 9, we're talking we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So we're to take that list that we made in step 8 that came from our 4th step list, from our 4th step last column in our sex inventory and harms done others. We have a list. Taking that list, I've got a list in step 8, and I'm going to start knocking on doors. Look at the topic. The spiritual life is not a theory. Page 83. I'll go back here for a second. So the last thing it says in the step 9, like you guys are familiar with the 9th step prayer, asking each morning in meditation our Creator show us. So God, please show me the same tolerance, sort of the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. That's the 9th step prayer. So hinging on that prayer, hinging on that way of life, it says, I need God to show me the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. those are pretty heavy concepts. Not necessarily easy, they have not been easy for me to access by self. I was 19 years old and I was diagnosed sociopathic. These are not the attributes, patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love that you give a sociopath. I have engaged in the process of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have had the experience that I am now at this place where those things are alive in me, but they're theoretical. You understand what I mean by that? They are theoretical. When you say to your partner and your loved one that's sitting in the room with you right now, I love you, that's a theory. That's a concept. It's a thought. I love you. It's nothing more than that. Until, of course, the life is not a theory. You got to live it. It's in italics. You got to live that way. You got to live the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. Who does that? Who does that? You do that, Elizabeth? Do you live that way? We know that it's an effort. We know that it's what I'm going to try. I've been exposed to this, right? So, even if you look up theory, so here's a 1935 dictionary, right? So this is a 1935 dictionary. Let me just read this to you quickly. It says, here's the definition of theory. It says, a doctrine, a scheme of things, which terminates in speculation or contemplation without a view to practice. So the theory doesn't even exist if it doesn't have a view to practice. Anybody here who's involved in science knows you can have a theory and you have to test that theory. So here we're talking about without the intent to practice, it disappears. It doesn't even exist. So we are talking about a spiritual way of life that we get exposed to by going and knocking on doors. The spirit of forgiveness, the spirit of connection, the spirit of setting right the wrongs, the spirit of connecting to my brothers and my sisters, that spirit of patience, kindliness, tolerance, and love, that's the theory. When I knock on doors, that's living it. If I'm not knocking on doors, and I'm going to tell everybody on here exactly what I think about this. If I'm not knocking on doors, I've stopped knocking on doors. I knocked off a few of the easy ones on my list, and my life is a shitstorm today. Everybody wants to go back and do inventory. Everybody wants to go back and introspect and see more stuff about themselves. You know what I mean? When in fact, all you need to do is re-engage the process in your 9 steps, because that's how you live the spiritual life. More introspection and looking at you, more self-help and therapy and all jogging and living sober book and sucking on a candy and having a hot bath, all that horse shit, it's got nothing to do with spiritual living. Nothing. This stuff, putting the knocking on the doors and living that way is the spiritual life. Now, when it says the spiritual life is not a theory, I've just blasted up. So we got to get the theoretical stuff. We get the information. Do you know how many people know a lot about Buddhism? Do you know how a lot of priests know a lot about Christianity? They end up in AA? And they could teach us a thing or two about prayer, except how to really put it into practice. They could teach us all the prayers. And if anybody's a man of the cloth and a minister on here, I'm not saying that to offend you. I'm saying welcome to AA and understand that I love you and value exactly what you bring to the table. But I haven't yet sponsored a man of the cloth, but I know a lot of them. And we have the same thing. We have this alcoholism, and it's the same thing, the inability to get connected to this power. The spiritual life is not a theory, and these folks have spent their lives in being educated in spiritual matters. And Buddhism and Taoism and all of these, they're all irrelevant in theory. They have you can read till the, how many people here are big readers? Put your hands up and have been reading spiritual reading for a long time. I only got 9 on my page. I hope the rest of them got their hands up. Well, beautiful. Well, that's great. I didn't know you could do that. I am very inept at this stuff. That's cool. But the idea behind that is that it's not because our book suggests spiritual reading in step 11. It suggests that, but it's suggested in step 11. It's here. It's if you're engaged in this process and you believe it's like a golf swing, if you believe there's something happening and you're following through with it, it's telling you that the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it right after the step 9 amends. And then it says this thought brings us to step 10 after it talks about the promises. What thought? That the spiritual life is not a theory. That's the thought. How important is this now? And anybody who spent any time with me knows how I feel about the 10th step. I believe that the 10th step is the biggest gift that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me, even beyond my sobriety. Because I remember what it was like to be annihilated under the thrashes of alcoholism and then to suffer the ramifications of my drinking. I remember that. But I also remember the pain and the dissolution of when my daughter hung herself and when my daughter died a month ago. I understand that pain and agony too. But I'm here to tell you that I'm a healed man. I'm here to tell you that the spiritual life is not a theory. I'm here to tell you that these are results. It says we've entered the world of the spirit. This is when we're actually, it says we're going to continue to take personal, and we're going to continue to set right any mistakes. We vigorously commence this way of living. The spiritual life is not a theory. We're going to commence this way of living as we clean up the past. We have entered the world of the spirit. This is where the spiritual life is not a theory. It's funny because there's someone who said to me, man, it sounds like you really believe in this stuff. Like you believe this good stuff is going to happen. And I said, I think I rely on it. I don't know how else to phrase it. Belief is not the issue. I have a reliance. And here's the interesting thing is that prayer and meditation, again, in and of itself is fruitless. It's important and it's very necessary, but of itself, it's fruitless. And that's the whole thing around this theory thing that it's talking about here is when I go to God and I have an idea or a concept of what it is that I'm taking to this God and this power, whether it's gratitude or whether it's, love and earnestness, or whether it's a request to be more service, or whether, I want somebody to be better and I start to put my will into it and start to see how I see things should go. And that stuff always creeps into my prayer life, and that's okay. And when I sit back and I contemplate on that, when I just measure that stuff up, I can tell by how peaceful I am through the feeling in my meditation moments. And this idea, this is how I practice it. I practice it the way the big book suggests you practice. So the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. We're moving into step 10, 11, and 12 disciplines. The disciplines are, you think about disciples, right? You think about what do they do? Well, they follow. They follow what? They follow the word. They follow what's put in front of them. They follow these directions. They follow and they become disciples of. And so we're disciples of these concepts, but these concepts are alive in our sponsors. They're alive in the people that we watch and respect in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if I go to a meeting because I hear that Elizabeth Biel is speaking and I really got inspired from her 6 months ago, and I think I see her flyer and I think, okay, and I go and I sit down and I've got no other distractions around me. And it's just her and I on this video screen. And I know that the powerful hand of God has had a touch on her and something's coming through, and I get a message for another day, a message that I couldn't have got. You see, this is the interesting thing about that concept yesterday is that the flimsy read is not a good thing. I was saying this when I started talking because I didn't realize I didn't prepare for it. It wasn't a workshop. It was just I was speaking. But this flimsy read it talks about, and some of you won't understand, but real quickly I'll talk about this. You see, there's a group here in an area close to us, and it's called the Flimsy Reed Group, and a great group of guys, but I don't know how they came up with the name because it's not okay. Flimsy Reed is the Flimsy Reed. It's like, so imagine you're in a swamp, and I was saying this yesterday, you're in a swamp, and then your own desperation, your own pain, your own agony. Some of you might be going through separations and divorces. Some of you might be going through some difficulties financially, and some of you, and you're immersed in that because it's on you. We have this beautiful way of life, but your life it's constructed by that. You get up in the morning, you have to fight it out with this power of prayer and God. And then you get through it and you do a couple of nice things that day and you think, oh, this is a great way of life. It's helping me get through this separate. But it's on you like a beast. It's quagmire. It's quicksand. And yet you look up and you see a reed. You know what a reed is? It's like cats. It's like and you reach up and you grab it. And it's flimsy. And it just holds you above the quicksand. It just holds you above the swampy water. It just holds you there. But it's flimsy. And it's kind of, sometimes you go down, sometimes you go up, and it's flimsy. But it proved that if you held on to it just long enough, the powerful hand of God, which was Elizabeth when she was speaking, the powerful hand of God reaches down and pulls you up. God uses us. It's our hands. I don't even know if God has hands. I don't know if God is a hand. I don't even know. hand, the powerful hand. My hand is the hand of God. When anyone reaches out, I want the hand of my hand is pulling that person from getting off of that flimsy reed, because that flimsy reed will not sustain them. And you people who are just getting sober here, and maybe you've been in and out. Someone said, oh, I'm a restart. I'm starting over again and all that stuff. It's like, holy shit, man, you're going to die. I don't know how else to say it, but you can't dick around like that. This is Alcoholics Anonymous, man. It's got a real answer here. It's got a real answer. The spiritual life is not a theory. You have to live it. And I'm not saying you got to get God. You got to be a Jesus jumper and all that shit. What I'm saying is you got to follow the dictates of these steps. And you will get to a place right here in steps 8 and 9 where you begin to understand that it says, remember, you were at the beginning, you were willing to do anything for victory over alcohol. You will start to understand that you are moving through this stuff. And in step 10, it says, okay, we've entered the world of the spirit. What do you mean? Have some of those promises come true? I'm sober 44 days. Have some of those promises come true? Yes, they have. I will be amazed before I'm halfway through my amends. I will start to know this stuff. And in step 10, it says, I'm placed in a whole different position. The thought of drinking is gone. It doesn't exist. It doesn't even exist for me. Alcoholics Anonymous is not a problem-solving program. You come in here with a whole shitload of problems, and you want AA to solve them. It's not a problem-solving program. It's a problem-ridding program. And this is what I was talking about earlier about the spiritual life is not a theory. Here's where I'm at. Elizabeth said, speak freely. Here's where I'm at. All right. All of you folks on here, 94 is, you're sitting here. I don't know what time it is where you are, but everybody looks like they're in pretty good shape. Everybody looks like they might have had a meal today. Everybody looks like that, if they wanted to have a meal, maybe our young lady in the bed that's 1 day sober, 2 days sober, still hurting, can't eat. It'll come. But here's the thing. Today, here, right now, it's 4:38, I think, but I don't know, it says 16:38, a military clock. I don't even know what that means. 16:38 where I am right now. Whatever time it is where you are right now, you don't have any problems. None. Not a one. Do you know how frustrated new people get when I say that to them? Do you know how frustrated old geezers get when I say that to them? When they're shit hitting the fan and they think, you don't understand, you don't know what's going on in my life. And I'm telling you, I'll put my number in there in the end so you can give me shit yourself personally. I'm telling you, you don't have any problems. But your ego immediately rushes to the forefront of your mind to tell you the problems you have, to screw up you being able to be with me right here, right now. That's what the ego does. That's its job. It's what it does. Everything we do in steps 4 through 9 is to crush that ego. Yet we will always rebuild. It'll always come back. And how does it come back? It's like you're sitting there and you're listening to a guy and he says, oh, you have no problems. What are you talking about, buddy? I had a big argument with my wife this morning. She's not talking to me anymore. You don't think that's a problem? No, I don't. You do. And it's not, because she's not yelling at you right now. You're right here right now. Right now, everything is perfect. Your ego straps you to tomorrow and yesterday. It cannot survive in the now. And spirituality only exists in the now. Whether it's a theory, it's practical, it only exists in the now. Spirituality can't happen this morning, and it can't happen 5 minutes from now. It can only happen now. Right here, right now is where God's presence exists. It can't be anywhere else. And I don't know how else to explain that without losing my mind, but it's not for me to convince you of that. I'm so passionate about that, because imagine a life without problems. Where did I get this from? Theory? Sure. I'll tell you the theory. I've been listening to Sandy Beach tapes since 1978. I've been a fan and a friend of fan. I became a friend of Sandy's for decades. And he had experiences in his life that I never wished on anybody. And I watched him power through them with strength and grace and spirituality. And I thought to myself, maybe someday that theory will come alive for me. I didn't know. What the hell do I know? I just stayed in the A&As and I kept seeing people, helping people, working with people, doing things I was speaking, going to conferences, loving everybody, hugging on everybody. I love AA. So I wasn't going anywhere. And I keep taking these steps, and I keep taking people through these steps. And then I have my own powerful, significant loss. And what happens? Well, the flimsy reed turned out to be the powerful hand of God. And it proved, the word is, see, we're talking about theory, and then the word proof. You see, there's theory has no proof without tacking some evidence to it or some testing. The experience has to happen. I was thinking about that. Like, what was I thinking earlier? I had wrote something down here about the difference between, spiritual experience and spiritual awakening. There is a difference. It says that terms are used often in our literature. Well, the spiritual experience is when I have a change of attitude sufficient for the recovery from alcoholism, sufficient from the recovery from drink. Spiritual awakening is when I become aware of God's power. I continuously become aware of God's power. God reveals himself over and over again. This power, and please don't define the God because I use the term in front of the power. Mark always said that. God, the term God turns people off. But it's just a word that we use that stands in front of the power. This power I'm speaking of exists deep down inside of me. And it was blocked by all kinds of garbage, the way I thought, the way I behaved, the way I felt, the guilt, the shame, the remorse. That's why none of those things are important. What I think and what I feel mean nothing. They've always been problematic for me, my feelings and my thoughts. But people want to say that AA is about feelings. It ain't about feelings. It isn't about that. You just happen to have a lot of them when you're not shit-faced. So we talk about them. We pat each other on the back and stuff. That's nice. But that's not what this is about. And people say, finally I can feel. And it's like, trust me, that's not a gift. I liked my sociopathology. I liked it when I didn't care. Now I care so goddamn much. I'm hurting all the time and I'm loving all the time. I'm happy all the time. And I'm never sad. I had a head-on collision and it hit me on the happy button or something. I'm always happy. I'm always in a good mood. But I want you to understand is that when we say that the spiritual life is not a theory, the theory has to be tested. It has to happen. And you folks with a couple of days, and man, I don't know if I've sold it through what I've been talking about today. It's not my job to convince you of anything, but I got to tell you, sometimes I want to, especially people who are coming and then leaving and then coming and then leaving. I want to convince you. I want to convince you that there's something here for you. If you be alcoholic of our type, if you're a real alcoholic, I only use the term because the book uses it often. If you're a real alcoholic, somebody that needs a spiritual experience to recover from alcoholism, that's the definition. You need to have a spiritual experience to recover from alcoholism. If you're a real alcoholic, we've got something here for you, and it's the spiritual experience. Don't get mad at us when we start leaning into this power, leaning into this God in our conversations. Getting connected it's the real McCoy. It's the only job a sponsor has, is to help an individual to get connected to the power that will solve their problems. That's our job, and I take it pretty seriously. If some guy tells me that he doesn't believe, I said, are you willing to believe? And he says, what does that mean? And I said, it'll mean showing up when I ask you to show up and maybe doing the few things I ask you to do. That's what it'll look like, And it's like, I'm going to do what you said. Well, let's see if you do. And then a couple of days later, a couple of weeks later, they've done everything, or and away we go, or they've done nothing. And I said, no, you were right. You really aren't willing to believe. So man, you need to try some more drinking. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm Marty, and I at the Prince George Group, and Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can come see me anytime, brother. And here's my number, and you want to call, and if you're hammered and stuff like that, I'll stay with you for a couple seconds. If you want to talk and you're not hammered, I'll stay with you all night. And this is what we do. This is the spirit. This is how you live it. One more thing, and then I'll shut up. I don't even know what time it is. How much time do I got? I want to leave time for questions.
You have until 58.
58. 13 minutes for questions. Okay, so that's what I'll do. So real quickly. And see, I interrupted myself, and now I won't remember what I was going to say. What did I do? What was I going to say? You guys have heard that saying before. Don't tell me, show me. Remember, for you folks who are on here and you are sponsoring and you are members of Alcoholics Anonymous, remember that too is your obligation. It's a theoretical obligation, and it's a spiritual obligation, that you will walk this walk. And like one guy told me, you guys have also heard people say, is my sponsor was love me enough to let me see his warts. You guys heard that? People say that I got lots of them. And the guys I sponsor will tell you that I'm not right in the head, but they would never change their sponsors because talked about this yesterday. I live a life like this. There's a beam. Me and Sandy live this way. There's a beam. And most of the time I'm on the beam. And all that looks like is I'm going to work on time. I'm being nice to the people I meet. I kiss my wife when goodbye. I kiss her hello. I get to my meetings on time. I'm on the beam. But every once in a while, something comes along and it knocks me off the beam. Resentment is my primary manifestation. I get pissed off and I get off the beam. And sometimes, my danger is if I'm angry and right at the same time. That's my danger. If I'm angry and right at the same time, it's awful hard for me to get. So it's righteous indignation, it's righteous anger, it's self-righteous anger. But once I get back on the beam, it's like, oh my God. And sometimes it takes 30 seconds and sometimes it takes 2 weeks. So my sponsees know this stuff. There's an accountability around us in our community of recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous that we're human. You new people, you're human. This isn't perfection. Oh my God, I hope I don't sound like some frivolous religiosity, pumped up guru, Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm mental. I said that at the beginning. I am so mental. And I love new guys and new gals because you're my people. I feel good. You're crazy. I'm crazy. We're all good. I'm not even close to perfect. And I don't even know if I like perfect people. I don't like perfect people. Okay, so I don't know if I hit the mark there, Liz. I hope it did. I hope it did. Let's open it up for some questions, okay?